Hey, welcome to episode 184, Fresh Air at 5. In this episode, you're going to hear about UDL, SCL, you're going to hear about taking a leap without looking, and metacognition, and other things. So thanks for listening, and without further ado, here's episode 184. Coming out a couple days late, as I was off the grid this past weekend fishing.
Hi, I'm Chris Nesi from the House of EdTech Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to right now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter, coming to you every week from Abbotsford, which is about 45 minutes east of Vancouver, British Columbia, on the west coast of Canada. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to get some fresh air by walking about my neighborhood, which is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Stolo people, the Simath First Nation and Mathwee First Nation. I consume podcast content while I walk, then reflect on this content in an unedited video, which I post on my X, formerly known as Twitter, channel every day. This podcast is the collection of the audio taken from those daily selfie videos over the course of a week, Monday to Friday. So let's jump into my listening and learning this past week. APLN, September 9, 2024. Welcome to the very first segment of episode 184 of Fresh Air at 5. All right, this morning I'm coming to you from the end of my street, as I've already walked about 3.5 kilometers so far this morning. Shorter walk, got up a bit later, but got some air into my lungs, taking some in-breaths, taking it in and exhaling and getting some emotions and stuff out as I walk. A couple reasons why I do that. So, as I'm listening this morning to episode 282 of the Teachers on Fire podcast. Tim Cavey, my friend, he has an interview with Kyle Wagner out of Hong Kong from Transform Educational Consulting. And Kyle comes on and talks about PBL and student-centered learning and how important it is to have students involved in their learning. We all have heard about project-based learning. We all understand that it's about students taking an idea and running with it in their own direction, but with some guidelines. I've been a victim of the complex and busy project-based learning experience in the past, where you give the kids a big package of stuff and you get 25 to 30 of the same thing back. Simple begets a complex solution. I like that idea. That's so fantastic. How could we take a simple idea and go in directions with it? I'm thinking about opening my class tomorrow, once I get permission from my principal, with students lighting a match and talking about the difference between analog and digital in their world today, and what does analog mean? Do kids know how to read an analog clock? Do they know how to light a wooden match? Can they do things like in the olden days where things were very analog and not digital at all? I would talk about the propane fire pit as a digital solution to a campfire that takes a different kind of skill set to get going. All right. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Kyle. Have a fabulous day. Okay, bye. One more thing for September 9, 2024. All right. I'm not done talking. I was cut myself short because I got excited about something I was going to do in class with lighting a match. But Kyle Wagner and Tim Cavey talked on episode 282 of Teachers on Fire. And Kyle has a book that he has written about the transformative work that can happen. Okay, what was the name of the book? Thinking. I can't remember. but you'll have to listen to the episode to get it. But it's about transformative practices towards PBL. What can we do to change the trajectory of our classroom from teacher-centered to student-centered? And so going forward, how can we have students lead discussions? How can we have students come up with ideas? How can we leverage artificial intelligence to aid us teachers to give us more time to spend with students so that they can, do the work, because it's about them doing the work and doing the learning. Transforming and changing it from a wages mindset in my class about getting the highest grades to the highest learning. And learning, because learning is important. So, yes, that's a little bit more. I didn't put that in the last segment, but I appreciate you continuing to listen. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Kyle. And have yourselves a fabulous day. And Kyle, 5:30 in the morning? I was up at 4:30 this morning doing my Fresh Air at 5. Take a listen to my pod if you want. And thank you all. And talk to you soon. Okay, bye. Hey, PLM, September 10, 2024. Good morning, and how are you doing today? Hope everything's going well. It is clear out and not too chilly, so it's a very nice walk today. As I'm walking along, I opened up Matt Miller and Holly Clark's Digital Learning podcast and episode 50. Congratulations on episode 50, both of you. Fantastic milestone. Love it, love it, love it. And I'm a big fan of your podcast because I like the relevance at which you talk about content that we're facing. The topic of episode 60 or 50 is cell phones versus learning in the classroom. And I appreciate the conversation that you both have. And I had an idea it was going to go the direction that you went by talking about banning or not, and about the nuances of each community in this space. In British Columbia, here in Canada, the Premier put out a law that cell phones are banned in schools, but we're going to leave it at the discretion of those in charge in the districts and at school levels and stuff like that. So the law is there that says we can take your cell phone away, but, well, I don't even know if it exactly says that, but the point is that we as classroom teachers and schools need to help and be in conversation about this. I appreciate the ideas you have about connectivity, about the brain break, about, the distraction. It bugs me. I'm in class, kids are on their phone, and I run a pretty, I think, engaging classroom. And I'm like, what? Am I not doing a good job? So, yes. All right. Thanks all. Take a listen for yourself to Holly Clark and Matt Miller as they talk about cell phones versus learning in the classroom. All right, take care. Bye. All right, one more thing for September 10, 2024. I just listened to episode 172 of the EdTech Throwdown as Eric and Nick bring us an episode where they compare and contrast the similarities and differences between student-centered learning is not the same as universal design for learning. And you know what? It's really cool how, Eric, you listened to a professional development by Kyle Wagner, and yesterday on my segment, I listened to Kyle Wagner talk to Tim Cavey on Teachers on Fire about this exact same thing about student-centered learning. And so I appreciate the continuity that I'm hearing today, from yesterday, as you guys are bringing in the 12 transformations towards student-centered learning that Kyle talks about. I'm going to have to take a look at that article that you link in your show notes, so thanks so much for that. You talk about SCL and also UDL and the differences and similarities between those things. I like how you work through this together and talked about how SCL is more teacher, facilitator, curator of information that allows students to run with their own ideas and still learning. I'm linking at this from a perspective here in British Columbia, where we have our curricular competencies and we have our content. So content would be the stuff that students are interested in, compared to, the curricular competencies of like investigate and, synthesize and collaborate and do those things. And so that's fantastic. All right, take a listen for yourself, because there's a lot of great going on here that these guys are bringing. All right, thanks. That's all I got for now. Okay, bye. Last thing for September 10, 2024. Nearing the home stretch here, heading back to home, make a cup of coffee and get on with my day. It's our first day of our fusion. Students coming to our building today, so it's like a first day of school. Very exciting. I've been working with our online students, but this is our in-building program, so they are a 2-day-a-week program, and they're coming tomorrow for day 1. Exciting, exciting. All right, as I'm walking, I listened to the beginning episode of season 7, episode 1 of Tech Tools for Teachers. I think it's season 7. It's the beginning of a new season with Shanna Martin and Fuzz Martin, as they bring us technology that teachers can use in their classroom. And Shanna, it's great to hear from you again. I'm glad you had a good summer as you dug into some PD trainings of your own and done some learning. And I'm excited to hear some more about that as you bring us some of the content that you were sharing with educators to Tech Tools for Teachers. Fantastic. In October, Shanna is going to be a guest. She's going to be actually a presenter at our virtual MyPETA conference. There's a virtual stream, then there's the in-person, and so she's going to be presenting some of her work to our teachers in British Columbia virtually over Zoom, and bringing that to them in their learning space in late October. All right, you talked on this episode about Ludia, which is UDL and as an AI tool using the POW.com AI platform that allows you to build your own AI tools. So that sounds exciting. That sounds like a cool, innovative thing. But Ludia is UDL and AI, and about taking an idea and helping to build out some content for students, looking at barriers, ways around that, universal design for learning techniques. Interesting how I'm on another UDL idea today. So, okay, that's all I got. We'll talk to you soon. Have a fabulous day. Bye. Okay, another last thing for September 10, 2024. I rushed through Ludia at the very end of that segment of Tech Tools for Teachers with Shanna Martin, as she talks about this tool and how it can be useful to develop lessons and learning objects and graphic organizers and all manners of things like that. So it does the prompt engineering for us and engages us in a conversation so that we can get stuff out of this. This is free at this point, and I'm glad to hear that it's free, because sometimes we get excited about these tools and they aren't free after a while. So cool to see that, and I'm going to start taking a look at that to see maybe how I can use and apply that in my classroom with my Fusion students. All right, have a good day, and we'll talk to you later. Bye. Hey, PLN, September 12, 2024. Good morning to you, and I hope you're doing well this week. Yesterday was September 11th, and I didn't walk. It's in the middle of a really full week. We have startup, but more importantly, it is the anniversary of a really fateful day in the United States, as we in the world witnessed the attack on the Twin Towers in New York City. And I remember where I was. I was following a thread on X with my Wordle peeps, and we're talking about, and I haven't posted mine, but where we were when we got the news and heard the news about the Twin Tower attack. And I had just walked into my research lab facility as a chemist, and it was our accountant. She was like, "Did you see what happened?" And we were on the internet and we were watching a stream about what was going on in New York City. And that was, wow. I'm like, wow, crazy. And it didn't hit me. And I went to work. And then after that, it really hit home. And we talked more about it as we went through our day. All right. It was my friend's birthday on September 11th. We worked in the lab together. So happy birthday, Trevor. It's your birthday, but it's also a significant day in American history. All right. This morning I listened to episode 284 of the Easy Ed Tech podcast with Monica Burns as she brings us 8 chatbot prompts to share with families. And you know what? Our inclusion of artificial intelligence in our world today is becoming more and more. We have an opportunity to educate our students, but also our families as they engage with these tools that are new and fresh. So check out this episode from Monica Burns and everything from recommendation ways. Hang on, I'll be right back. One more thing for September 12th, 2024, carrying on my thoughts about episode 284 of the Easy Ed Tech podcast with Monica Burns, as she brings us 8 chatbot prompts families will love, is about taking the opportunity to do some education outside of the classroom with families about the experience they could have with a chatbot like Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT, because these tools are now getting baked into other things that we do. The other day I noticed I was looking at a post on Facebook and Meta, I must have swiped over and touched the, Meta, tell me some more about this. And it said the person in that prompt that wrote that article, the post, here's some more ideas about what you could do with that information. And I'm like, wow, you know what? Is it true or not? It quite likely is pretty reasonable. So, it wasn't high stakes. It's like, how can you freeze corn with a dollop of butter in a vacuum seal bag and then bring it out and steam it in a pot of water to have corn later in the year? And, it gave some ideas about how to do that, difference between blanching and not. And so I thought that was interesting. Monica talks about using it for accessibility. Chatbots are available 24/7 to be able to possibly help with some homework ideas, project ideas, things to do on weekends for families, ways of looking at the world and seeing what is going on, in other countries with respect to a certain idea, a science concept or whatever, talking about the relevance of, a math concept. Why in the world, why do I need to learn this? There's that. Recommendations for movies might not be great, but maybe a place to start. It's another way of getting that recommendation list that Netflix and YouTube provide to you, but without being on those services and seeing all the other noise. All right, Monica, thanks so much. Appreciate your thoughts. And I'm encouraging people around me to dig into AI as well. Okay, talk to you soon. Bye. The last thing for September 12, 2024. Seeing to Lead, Episode 4, Season 1 with Chris Jones brings us a collaborative episode with him and Craig Shapiro, the author of the YouTube channel, Cut the Crap with Shap, and they give each other a prompt and see where each goes with that. Hey, Chris, it was great to hear the prompt that you gave Craig, but I didn't hear his response. It got cut short for some reason. Not sure what's going on with the podcast recording, but I like the prompt that you had generated and given to Craig for him to reflect on. Don't look before you leap. Leap because you looked. Now, that seems like it's this and that idea, a coin flip. But what's on the backside of that coin is look or leap because you looked. Now, this has to do with us going through our lives and the experiences that we have, Chris, that I believe is what the direction that you could go with this prompt. And, the preparation for the things that we have gone through to this point in our lives have set us up to be right where we are right now. I'll give you an example of this. In less than 2 weeks, I'm going to be keynoting at a professional development experience in a neighboring community here in British Columbia. Now, I haven't given a keynote before. It scares me a little bit to think that I'm going to be, one of the primaries at a presentation at a conference. I'm talking about artificial intelligence. Okay, now that even is daunting in its own right. But you know what? My colleague, she said to me, she goes, Brian, you know a lot of things. Your network of people that you have connections with has brought you a lot of understanding and knowledge in the area that you're going to be talking about. So I took the leap. I did look, and I know that it's something that I could speak into, and here we go. So yes, Craig and Chris, thanks so much for the idea. And Chris, take a look at the podcast recording to see what's going on. Okay, have a good day. Okay, bye. Hey, PLN, Friday the 13th of September 2024. Sometimes Friday the 13th strike fear into us, and other times they don't. This one shouldn't. It's just a September Friday, and nothing bad is maybe going to happen today, but one Friday the 13th that stood out was the beginning of COVID here in North America on Friday the 13th of March 2020. And that's a bad Friday. I remember the panic and the stress, and we were supposed to be going on a trip and it didn't work out. So I don't like that Friday, the 13th. But today I'm pretty fired up. I've got work today, and then right after work I'm heading up country to go fishing for the weekend with my buddy. Super excited about that. So on this Friday the 13th, I'm excited, and we have Wacky Hat Day at school, or wear your favorite hat for staff, and we'll show off our headwear to each other. All right, this morning, I listened to what I talked about 2 or 3 episodes ago. A New to Me podcast was The Cult of Pedagogy with Jennifer Gonzalez. And, ashamed that I haven't listened to this in all my years of listening to podcasts. And I bring it to your attention, and you should go check out The Cult of Pedagogy with Jennifer Gonzalez if you have not done so. On this episode 232, Jennifer talks with Dr. Megan Sumeracki out of Rhode Island College about her work that she has to do with metacognition and the work she does with learning about our learning and or thinking about our thinking, and how we go about recalling information that we have learned, maybe in quotation marks, or learned without quotation marks, and what's going on with the psychology of that, practices that are in place, and how students can do better at tests. She talks about the retrieval practice as opposed to just rereading, something that I have had some experience with, but I don't know enough that I could explain it to students. Maybe I do, but yes. All right, so that's all I got for right now. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. One more thing for September 13, 2024. Carrying on my thoughts, because, clearly I wasn't done a moment ago as that last segment wrapped up about the episode 232 of The Cult of Pedagogy, as Jennifer Gonzalez talks with Dr. Megan Sumeracki about metacognition and thinking about our thinking, and how we know what we know and don't know, and know what we don't know, and also the confidence that goes along with knowing what we know, and the underconfidence as well. And so putting those two things together can lead us to a better understanding of what we know and what we don't know. I was curious about this and enjoyed this episode because I've had some experience with this in the past in my own life. And I am typically not a great rereader, but I do take notes. And I think that process of taking notes in real time while I'm learning something, and then going back and as needed make cheat sheets for the recall process with my notes as opposed to the original content, can help solidify the work that I've done in learning. Now, it doesn't work all the time, and she talked about how the cram is significantly less effective for long-term learning, but can be effective in that very moment before a test. Now, do we take tests for the sake of learning or for the sake of getting the grade? Now, that's a debate. I like to go with the point is to learn, and the test is a reflection of our learning. And I see students in my own classrooms and courses that rush through and they don't know, but they think they know, and it doesn't work out. But yes. All right, so there's more thoughts. Thank you so much, Summer. Nope, Dr. Sumeraki. That's where the summer came from. And Jennifer, for your thoughts. Okay, bye. The last thing for Friday, September 13th, 2024. I listened to Teach Happier, which is one of my regular podcasts that I like to listen to. If you don't, I would strongly encourage you to go and subscribe to Suzanne Daly's podcast that she brings us. A quick, typically less than 10-minute segment that gets you thinking, and it, you can put it in your back pocket and work on whatever she was talking about through the week. And, it has helped me over the time to be a better human, and, with some practical ways of doing so. Over the summer, there was a bonus episode of, what could go right. I shared that with colleagues, what could go right as opposed to what could go wrong as we dig into, school startup. And that was so good. All right, Suzanne started season 5 with episode 1 called Wave Your Green Flag. And Suzanne talks about the quality of our relationships will help determine the quality of our life. Those with, of us with, significant relationships and good relationships, have a rich life. And I am privileged and thankful for the work that I have done with my relationships, my wife and my kids, my close crew family, my immediate family, my parents, and, people around. And the time that we've spent building those relationships pays off because we have a more settled, emotional, and, wellness space for ourselves. Not saying that if you struggle with mental health and wellness that you don't have good relationships, but relationships are a significant part of that. So, building relationships. She talks about the extremes of the red flag people and the green flag people. I haven't heard about the green flag people, but I get what that means compared to the beige flag people in the middle. And I know who my green flag people are. I know who they are, and I enjoy spending time with them and can spend hours and days with my green flag people, whereas the red flaggers, can't do that so much. All right, thanks. Have a happy Friday, and I'm out of here. Okay, bye.
I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's like a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find some other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific episode podcast titles and episode numbers in the show notes, which are only a click or swipe away for your learning convenience. I've also started to put together a Spotify playlist of each of the episodes so that you can also take a listen to those specifically, and the link to that playlist is in the show notes. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoy this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. You can also follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Brian Carr, BRYONCAR, or at Fresh Air at 5. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can be found on the Educational Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. I hope you have a fantastic day. Get some fresh air before the day is out and take care of yourself because you are worth it.